She stood in the narrow hallway outside the conference room, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing like a warning in her ears, knowing her job was already gone before anyone said a word. The time card glowed on the screen behind the glass, red marks stacked like quiet accusations, and Hannah Collins felt her chest tighten, as if the building itself was pushing her out. She had been late again, and this time there would be no grace, no patience, no waiting for explanations. When the door finally opened and she walked in, she carried more than a mistake on her shoulders. She carried a truth that no one there was prepared to hear, a truth that would drain the room of sound and leave even the harshest voices without words. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us to look deeper before we judge, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach hearts that need them. Hannah had never planned on being late to anything in her life. She was the kind of person who set alarms 10 minutes apart, who laid out clothes the night before, who believed showing up early was a sign of respect. She worked as an administrative coordinator at a mid-sized logistics firm in Columbus, Ohio, a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and groceries in the fridge. The building sat near a highway, glass and steel, reflecting a world that moved fast and waited for no one. For the first 2 years, her record had been spotless. Then, slowly, the red marks appeared. 5 minutes late, 7 minutes late, 12. Each one came with a warning email, a note in her file, a tightening knot in her stomach that followed her all the way home. Home was a small, aging duplex on a quiet street, where paint peeled and floorboards creaked like tired bones. It was also where her life truly began each morning, long before sunrise. Hannah lived with her younger brother, Aaron, a 19-year-old whose life had been altered by a car accident 2 years earlier. A drunk driver had run a red light and turned Aaron's plans for college and independence into months of hospitals, therapy, and a long road of recovery that still wasn't finished. He could walk now, slowly and carefully, but mornings were the hardest. His muscles stiffened overnight, pain locking his body into a resistance that required patience, warmth, and help. Their parents were gone, claimed by illness years apart, leaving Hannah as the only steady presence in Aaron's life. Every morning followed a careful rhythm. Hannah woke before dawn, prepared medication, helped Aaron stretch, waited through the painful slowness of movements that once came easily to him. Some days were better than others. Some mornings passed with quiet determination, others with setbacks that stole precious minutes. Public transportation was her only option, and buses did not care about personal battles or silent victories. When she missed one, she waited for the next, watching the sky lighten as time slipped away. Each late arrival felt like a personal failure layered over an unavoidable reality. At work, understanding was thin and deadlines were sharp. The company had been under pressure, contracts tightening, patience wearing down. Her supervisor, Michael Turner, had once praised her organization and calm efficiency. Over time, his emails grew colder, his reminders more frequent. Hannah tried to explain once, carefully, without drama, mentioning family responsibilities and health challenges at home. The response had been polite but firm, emphasizing policy and punctuality. She stopped trying after that, choosing instead to work harder, stay later, and hope effort might outweigh minutes lost. It never did. The final warning arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, neatly formatted and devastatingly clear. The morning she was fired began like any other, except everything went wrong at once. Aaron woke in. Severe pain, his legs refusing to cooperate, his breathing tight with frustration he tried to hide. Hannah moved slower, gentler, refusing to rush him through suffering. The bus arrived early and left without her. The next one crawled through traffic, stalled by an accident miles ahead. By the time she reached the office, she was 20 minutes late. She sat at her desk, hands shaking slightly as she logged in, knowing what would come. An hour later, the meeting request appeared. No explanation, no delay. Just an address and a time that had already passed. Inside the conference room, the air felt heavy. Papers lay neatly arranged, decisions already printed and signed. Hannah listened as the reasons were listed, the policy cited, the pattern explained. She nodded, accepting the verdict she had anticipated for weeks. When she was asked if she had anything to add, something shifted inside her. The room seemed to narrow, the faces around the table blurring at the edges. She spoke then, not in defense, not in anger, but in truth. She explained about Aaron, about the accident, the mornings that began in pain and determination, the buses that did not wait, the nights spent balancing bills and hope. She explained that being late was not carelessness, but care itself, a choice made every morning between a clock and a human being who needed her. The silence that followed was complete. No pens moved, no papers rustled. Even the hum of the building seemed to fade. Michael stared at the table, his jaw tight, his earlier certainty visibly shaken. Another manager wiped at her eyes without realizing it. For a moment, policy and procedure had nowhere to hide, stripped bare by the reality of love and responsibility. But silence does not always change outcomes. The decision stood, bound by rules that had already been enforced. Hannah gathered her things, thanked them for their time, and walked out with her head high and her heart aching. The days that followed were some of the hardest of her life. Unemployment forms replaced spreadsheets, rejection emails replaced routine. Hannah sold what she could, cut back where possible, and smiled for Aaron even when fear gnawed at her sleep. She applied everywhere, from offices to libraries to small nonprofits that promised flexibility but rarely delivered. Still, something unexpected began to happen. Word traveled quietly. A coworker shared her story with a friend. That friend mentioned it to someone else. Compassion moved in ways Hannah could not see, carried by people who had heard and remembered the silence of that room. One afternoon, weeks later, her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. A local rehabilitation center in Columbus was expanding its community outreach program and needed an operations coordinator, someone organized, patient, and deeply familiar with the realities of caregiving. They had heard about Hannah through a chain of conversations and believed she might be the right fit. The schedule was flexible. The mission was personal. When she hung up, Hannah sat at the kitchen table and let herself cry for the first time since losing her job, tears of relief soaking into the worn wood beneath her hands. As life slowly steadied, Hannah returned to herself, stronger and more grounded than before. She walked Aaron through new exercises, celebrated small improvements, and found purpose in work that aligned with her values. Months later, she ran into Michael at a grocery store. He looked older, quieter. He told her he had changed how he listened after that day, how policies had faces now, how silence sometimes spoke louder than rules. Hannah smiled, wishing him well, carrying no bitterness, only the knowledge that her truth had mattered. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the unseen battles people carry into ordinary rooms, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs empathy, and subscribe so these stories of quiet courage can continue to be. Before this story ends, I want to ask you to leave a comment below with the word compassion if you believe understanding can change lives. Hannah's story is not about being late or losing a job. It is about the courage to choose humanity over convenience, even when the cost is high. It is about rooms that fall silent when truth walks in, and about the slow, powerful way kindness finds its way back to those who live by it. Sometimes the reason leaves everyone silent, not because it is loud, but because it is real, and real things demand that we listen.